Okay, we'll get started and call the meeting to order. If you could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome to the February 6th, 2020 Town of Riverhead Planning Board meeting. We have a pretty full agenda tonight. First item on the agenda is discussion item for 1792 Middle Road, Breezy Hill Group. Jeff, if you want, you can sit at the table here. Yeah, it's not a hearing.
Good evening, gentlemen. Yes, at the time I'll be brief. I did forward to the planning department memorandum today explaining the procedures that you'll need to follow for developing a final scope for the Breezy Hill proposed C&D facility. Under both the town Chapter 225 regulations, environmental quality review, and as of January 2019, under the SEQR Part 617 SEQR review procedures of the state, you need to have a mandatory scoping session. The applicant has provided us with a draft scope, so the public should be made aware, together with all involved agencies and interested parties, of the date, the time, the location, a description of the project, and it's advisable to provide the draft scope to the public and the other agencies for them to provide us with any other additional comments. The scope will not only identify where the adverse impacts or potential for adverse impacts may be, but also the depth and methodologies of the analyses, and in this case, what alternatives you would like to have analyzed. I believe the next meeting of this board might be on February 20th, so I think there's ample time to get that information out. However, the final scope is due within 60 days of receipt of the draft scope, and that deadline is February 26th. So that would give us 5 to 6 days to get that out and published and back to the applicant.
After the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Is there an amount of time that it needs to be posted before our next meeting?
It's not a hearing, so we're not on a hearing schedule, but I would think for the courtesy of the public and interested parties as soon as possible. Also, an environmental news bulletin notice needs to be provided. Their cutoff date, their deadline will be next Wednesday at 6 p.m. There is a form that can be completed. I provided that to the planning department as well so that they can fill in that form. The environmental news bulletin does not get the draft scope. It's purely just the announcement, a brief description, and date and time and location of the scoping session. I also recommended that copies be made available not only through the town website, but also the public library and the planning department.
Stan, just for the board's information also, I did contact the head of the Cumberland Pacific Association, let them know that it was on tonight's agenda. But the application is here, that they have any questions about it, they reach out to us, and if he wants to come get a copy of it, it's certainly available. They've been made aware of it.
Well, once the final scope is completed and sent back to the applicant, who will also be noticed of the scoping session to take notes, etc. They have pretty much an unlimited time to prepare the draft environmental impact statement, and then when that comes in, we have 45 days to review for adequacy, but we'll get into that much later in the process.
Can they supply a tax map so we can see, let's say, what properties surround this particular locations for it, whether they're vacant, what the zoning is, what the potential of growth around it?
Yes, and in some cases, cooperative applicants have actually even posted their property to give the surrounding area notice that there is a scoping session for secret.
I
That's
think
been
maybe
done
j-
on Main Street.
Maybe just for a visual, if we could get an aerial, to the board, so we could physically see what is surrounding there and what may be built and not built.
Absolutely.
I think you have that in your staff report.
Yeah, it is in my staff report, but I'll blow it up, I'll get you guys a bigger copy.
Okay.
I mean, there are neighboring
That'd be
residences
good,
to
right,
the
Jim?
east, but I will provide that to the board.
Okay, once it's posted, can amendments be made once it's posted?
Once the final scope is posted, or once the date and time of the scoping session is posted,
No, the final,
the final scope.
if something came up.
No, once the final scope is issued by the 26th of February, no, that's their outline to respond to and for us to analyze, to accept it. But once the DEIS is done, then there's that 30-day comment period, and then you can certainly open it up to additional
Okay.
information. And if you've learned of any additional information in the meantime, even now, we can incorporate that into the scope. It's really your scope. You tell them what you want. They only provided the draft. And certainly, I'm available to, we'll develop this together, and we don't have to wait until the 20th and prepare it. We can begin preparing it now and just amend it accordingly as we get closer to the February 26th deadline. If we don't do that, even with the public scoping, their draft scope automatically becomes the scope, and you'll miss the opportunity to add any additional information for the EIS to study. And
Okay.
of course, any questions that come up later at a later date, let me know.
Will the scope be at a planning board meeting, or is it the town board? the
You will,
scoping
you
scope?
will adopt the final scope, as the lead agency. And that's a very good question. I don't know how that will fit into the schedule.
We're on a short clock here.
The scoping session is gonna be at our next meeting?
If you choose,
Same date.
you can have it any time between, you can pick any date up to the final date for the deadline for the final scope. That's why I would encourage you to think about what else you would like to incorporate into this now from the board's perspective. And we'll take comments from the public into consideration and other agencies, and we should be able to meet the deadline. I'm sorry, but we just sort of officially got into this thing recently, so we lost a lot of time on the 60 days that we would have had, and provided this board more time to schedule the scoping session.
Chairman, we might wanna consider taking a resolution off the floor tonight to, post and publish for a scoping hearing, instead of losing 2 more weeks. Be a good idea.
Okay, yeah, and that,
It's not a hearing, though, that's the one thing I checked with point out, it's not a hearing, like a hearing for subdivision or site plan, it's a scoping session.
right, but we wanna get it posted to the public.
Right.
Just for information, so there's not a legal instrument or legal timing like for subdivision or site plan, but it's, again, it's informational, not a legal requirement, like.
Oh, it's not a legal requirement?
Not for the length of time, like there's
Oh.
the legal time for public hearings and site plans, but not for a scoping session. It's not a hearing.
Well, how do we let the public know that we're having a
No,
scoping?
I'm saying, but for information purposes, absolutely, we'll get that into the Times Review and local,
Okay.
we're in local, excuse me. But again, it's not a hearing, it's not a public hearing schedule.
Gotcha.
They had one appearance in front of us.
And please be mindful that the President's Week thing begins on February 17th, so you're also in that sort of vacation cycle for at least.
Well, that's on a
something to
Monday, so
consider.
it doesn't impact our meeting.
Well, the 17th, but it usually runs that week as far as,
Vacations.
Right.
Life goes on.
I know, it does. I don't get that week off.
Me neither.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks,
thank you.
Jeff. Okay, next item on the agenda, discussion item for Donnelly Residence, Chapter 219. Just your name for the record, please, sir?
Richard Bosworth.
And you are for the applicant, right?
Correct.
Architect, engineer?
Builder.
Builder, okay. Okay, John.
Alright, so the reason this is on for discussion today is because the ZBA, at the ZBA public hearing, there were concerns from a neighbor regarding the drainage and the integrity of the bluff. Just to go over a few things that I've noted, both in my staff report and that was in the DEC permit. With my recommendation to the board, some of the conditions of approval are that he has to make an appointment with me to verify that all the erosion control measures are in place on the site prior to the commencement of construction. And another condition that was made for approval was that the applicant must retain a licensed New York State PE who is an environmental engineer that's gonna remain on site to inspect and oversee the construction of the new retaining wall structure and ensure that the integrity of the bluff remains intact, as well as provide to me an analysis of the bluff, make sure that everything is structurally sound. There are other things such as the issue with the piping plover. There's certain dates that no access to the beach or for construction can be done, no tree clearing because of the northern long-range bat. And with the issuance of a DEC permit, there are certain conditions with every DEC permit that the DEC mandates. And some of these conditions could absolve some of the concerns of the neighbor, where the applicant has to conform with the plans that were signed and stamped with the DEC, and retaining wall has to be constructed to the specifications as approved. No construction debris in the wetland area. Equipment and materials must be stored away from landward up top of bluff. No alteration of the bluff or a stairway. No runoff down bluff or onto the beach. And any areas that are disturbed must be vegetated. When I went to the site in last May with the applicant, did a site inspection, the bluff is very well vegetated. I didn't see any issue for erosion. So,
John, I was talking to one of the zoning board, appeals members, and they said one of the concern was drainage. Do we have an architect or an engineer's stamp that this will handle the drainage? Or Vinnie, have you looked at it?
I have.
And you,
They're proposing to contain their runoff from the roof in a dry well, south of the house. That is shown on the last survey that was submitted. There are several drawings in the file that we looked at. I believe there are 3 site plans in succession. The last one shows a dry well. That doesn't appear on some of the other drawings. So there is drainage proposed. So you just need to make reference to that.
You feel it's adequate?
Well, it's adequate to handle the runoff from the roof. Based on the grades that were provided to us, the property slopes slightly, it's relatively flat, but it slopes from north to south. There's a site plan dated June 11, 2019. But, more or less, as you pull into the site, and you're facing north, the low area of the site pretty much is there. So that's where the water is coming from. But again, one of our primary concerns when we look at an application like this is to make sure that the runoff from the impervious areas are contained and properly managed. One thing that I'm seeing here on the site plan is the lack of identifying any proposed driveway or other improvements that would be proposed in connection with the development of this property. I would suggest to the board that any surface or any improvements that are being proposed in connection with the redevelopment of this house appear on the site plan. What we don't want to see granted to reconstruct and build a house, and then we go there and there's an asphalt driveway and retaining walls and everything, and it hasn't been properly engineered. In evaluating this, I know that one of the adjoining property owners has brought some concerns and issues to the design, and I would expect that the applicant's architect respond to them. In addition to that, I think there's some logistics here with the development of this house and questions that I have that just have not been provided. It would appear to me that there's a proposed egress window well for this structure with the intention that they're gonna build some type of a basement.
It's part of code at this point. Anytime you have a, excuse me, anytime you have a full basement,
Right.
it's New York State code now that you have an egress
Well,
window.
the question is how you building this basement? You only got 9.5 feet to the property line. How are you excavating? How are you basically assuring that any excavation associated with this construction of this foundation is not going to impact the adjacent property owners? So, beyond what we would typically see here on this type of application, I think there's some logistics here that we would expect the applicant to respond to before we would be in a position to approve this.
Have you put those concerns in writing yet?
I have not because of the fact that I was hoping that the architect would be here today to kind of shed some light on these, but I can certainly list this and give that to the applicant to address.
So, Rich, what's the intention for the driveway?
There's to be no driveway.
Okay, so we can
There
make.
isn't one, there isn't an
And it's gonna stay
existing
that
one.
way.
There'll be no impervious
Right,
surfaces.
so we could make that a condition of the approval when we get to that point. And also the conditions that the DEC placed on the project, is the neighbor aware of those?
They made a FOIL request last year, and I provided them with a copy of all information pertaining to both the ZBA application and the Chapter 219.
Okay. All right, so we're obviously not gonna act on this until we have these concerns answered, so can you put those, what you outlined in writing, so that John can share it with the applicant?
So we're looking basically for, well, I mean, I can answer some of it right here, right now, if that's okay. As far as if you look on the site plan and you see the erosion control.
But I don't think that you are the design professional, you're the builder?
I'm the builder, but I'm saying, one of the questions that he's asking, the erosion control runs north to south as well as across the top of the bluff. So as far
we're
as
gonna-
the excavation, I mean, it's basically 4 feet is what you need to excavate for a foundation. 2 feet either side of the wall, so basically it doesn't cave in. There's a considerable, I'm pretty sure there's a considerable amount of clay on that bluff. So as far as it coming in, there's nowhere for it to go. There's nowhere for it to go. And as far as to the adjacent properties to the east and the west, you can have silt fence and hay bales. So it's not gonna, there can't be any runoff into the adjacent property.
So that's assuming
Let me
perfect.
express my concern. You've got a first floor elevation of this house of 37.5. The bottom of the footing again, we don't know what the foundation is. Is it an 8-foot basement? Is it a 10-foot basement? So where does the bottom of that footing set? Assume it's an 8-foot basement, so the footing at the corner is gonna be approximately 27.5. So you're digging down, existing grade is somewhere in the neighborhood of 35. So you're digging down 7.5, 8 feet in this corner, along that property line to put that footing in. How are you assuring us that you're not going to be undermining or impact or going beyond?
We don't know the
That
soil
information.
conditions, I don't
We
know,
don't
is there
know
a
that.
test board done? I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying. We
we're
don't know
assuming that the
more.
soil's gonna be stable, so
Right.
So, again, I'll put my comments in writing.
I think
and
that's
how
the
they
best
need
way.
to
And
address it.
I think we're gonna require them to be answered by a registered architect or a licensed engineer.
Well, the engineer would
Okay.
be the one to do that.
And again, there's some comments raised by the neighbor. I don't believe them all to be accurate, but in fairness this to his comments. The questions and the sketches that he has provided, that information has not been provided to us by the applicant or the applicant's design professionals, surveyor, architect, which in this case, I believe would be in the best interest of us and the board to have, to make an adequate and proper decision.
Okay, include that in your comments.
Absolutely.
Okay.
When could I expect to see this? When could I expect to see this? We're on
Sure, we
with
can
the
get something
ZBA
next week.
again next week, and then hopefully coming back here the following. So,
I could put it in writing to the board next week. I think we'd be in a position whenever we meet again to digest and at least give them some time to respond to it.
So we meet again in 2 weeks.
okay, as far as the ZBA is concerned, is, the proper way to say this, is this their jurisdiction in any way, shape, or form? Is there any reason, and I don't know if you can answer this question, is there any reason that they cannot approve
What are you in
their
front of the
end of it?
CBA for?
We're going for side yard relief,
Oh, sorry.
plain and simple,
And then the variance for being within the coastal erosion hazard area.
which they had no concerns with, but they wouldn't approve that because,
Speaking to one of the members that I spoke to, he said that the concern was of runoff, water runoff. I think that was the only issue they had.
But
That's why
is-
they sent it back here.
but is that is your jurisdiction, am I correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So there's no reason for us to
We
get it?
can't speak for the zoning board.
Okay, I'm just saying, but it is, that does fall within your realm of, okay. So we can stay on board for the ZBA, and then we'll come back and see you in 2 weeks?
Very good.
Right, but we're not gonna move it forward until these questions are satisfied.
Depending on how early I can get it, I'll have them satisfied by the end of the week and have it to John,
Okay?
okay?
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay, next item on the agenda is, Babkeys Residence, Chapter 219.
No, this is it. You're up next.
Is the applicant here?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I just put this on for a quick discussion. Crown is 219. We did receive a engineering review memo from Vinnie Gordiello, the town's consulting engineer. And at this time, we find the design to be complete, and engineering approval is recommended. And the revised drawings, he said that the permit drawing and details have been amended in a manner that satisfies our previous comments and engineering review memo dated November 20th, 2019. So there is a resolution on for tonight to approve this 219 project.
Okay. So there was no other outstanding issues for this application, right?
Nope.
Okay.
The only outstanding issue was that we were just waiting for him to provide Vinnie the revised plans for his approval.
Right. Okay. Thank you, John. Okay, next item is item 4, East End Country Kitchens. Hey, good evening. Just your names for the
Hello.
record, please.
I'm Peter Pizzara. I'm one of the co-owners with my brother Paul.
And I'm Alex Kosiski, project manager from Bull Engineering.
All right, Greg.
All right, so the planning department has received and reviewed a site plan application seeking approval to construct a 5,760 square foot, single-story warehouse building on a piece of industrially zoned land, as well as perform parking, lighting, sanitary, stormwater management, and landscaping improvements throughout the parcel. With regards to SECR, the action is an unlisted action pursuant to SECR. Planning staff has reviewed the full environmental assessment form, the site plan and related information. At this point, planning staff recommends the planning board assume lead agency status, with coordinator review being optional and not recommended, and further recommends a negative declaration pursuant to SECR, as the proposed improvements will not have a significant negative impact on the health, safety, or general character of the surrounding area. The subject parcel is a 1.68 acre parcel of land which is located on the west side of Edwards Avenue in the vicinity of Edwards Avenue and the Long Island Railroad tracks. The parcel is located within the Industrial C zoning district and is also located within the Pine Barrens Compatible Growth Area, as well as the New York State DEC Wild, Scenic, and Recreational Rivers Area, the recreational portion of that zone specifically. The site is presently improved with a 6,823 square foot single-story frame building, which can be seen on figures 2 and 3 on my staff report. This building is currently used for manufacturing and warehousing. There is an associated parking area and a single-story Econoline storage building, which was built without benefit of a permit. The site plan application includes a proposal to remove this unpermitted structure. Access to the site is provided via a 49.5-foot wide right-of-way off of Edwards Avenue. Title work done by the applicant has demonstrated that the property owners on either side of this right-of-way have an interest and right to use the road. There are currently a number of parking stalls within this right-of-way which serve as parking for the showroom portion of the building, which fronts on Edwards Avenue. It is noted during a site visit there is a rolling chain link gate which is installed across the right-of-way. Staff would recommend the installation of a Knox lock at this location just to allow for emergency access. In terms of conformity with zoning, the site plan complies with all the dimensional requirements of the town code for the Industrial C zoning district, including proposed use, parking, building setbacks, impervious coverage, floor area ratio, and building height. The site plan does propose a 60 square foot dumpster enclosure with a 6-foot high black vinyl chain link fence near the eastern portion of the property, which complies with town code. However, it was noted during a site visit that the applicant had installed a trash compactor next to the main building, which can be seen in figure 6 of my staff report. This compactor should be enclosed with a chain link fence and screening as required by the town code as well.
Was there an encroachment by the golf course? It looks like there's a sand trap or something on your property.
Yes, so back in initially the 90s, the golf course had to come onto my applicant's property and clear the portion of the property to, to not lose the golf balls. So they had cleared that portion of the property, which we had not known at that point, had illegally cleared the Pine Barrens and DEC permitted plants that were on that site. So right now we are proposing to replace those plants. We have already gone to the Pine Barrens, we've gotten a letter through the Pine Barrens, and we are currently amending our DEC permit to replace the number of plants that are at the rear portion of our property, so. But yes, it was illegally cleared by the golf course when they had come through.
This sand trap you're referring to here?
Yeah.
That's actually the right of way.
Okay.
So no one really owns that piece. That's
Okay,
really,
gotcha.
they kinda use it as part of the golf
Oh,
course.
I see, yeah, there's another line here.
Yeah, that's the 50-foot right of way, so it ends
Okay.
at the back of that property and goes all the way to Edwards Avenue.
Okay, I understand. So they just cleared a small portion of your property?
Yeah, they kinda used us and
Right. I see the right of way now. Thank you.
In terms of site lighting, the site plan proposes a total of 8 pole-mounted LED light area lights. The fixtures comply with a 16-foot mounting height as well as a 3,000 degree Kelvin color temperature as required by Article XLIX of the town code. In terms of parking, the site plan currently proposes a total of 22 parking stalls. However, as I stated, there is that trash compactor that was installed next to the main building. Although it is not shown on the plan, it looks like this would result in the loss of 1 parking space, in which case it would still provide 21 parking spaces, which complies with the requirements of the town code. They already touched on the historical clearing, which was done, I believe, at some time between 2001 and 2004, so almost 20 years ago. But as Alex stated, the applicant has provided a substantial revegetation plan. Just speaking to the Pine Barrens memo that Alec referred to, previous iteration of this site plan, which proposed a 3,800 square foot building, was reviewed by the Pine Barrens Commission at its meeting on July 18th, 2018. Their letter in summary stated that the proposal did constitute development and it must conform to the standards for land use contained within Chapter 5 of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan and as implemented by the Town of Riverhead Zoning Code. The Pine Barrens memo at that time stated that as long as the town is able to address the CGA compliance requirements with regards to clearing, no further action or review would be required from the Pine Barrens, so they effectively put it the ball in our court. Within the Industrial C zoning district, there is a maximum clearing limit of 65%. Right now, the site plan proposes to revegetate the western portion of the property behind the building. Proposes to revegetate 22,231 square feet, which translates to 30.3% of the parcel. In order to demonstrate compliance, they need to hit that 35%, so they just need to add another 3,455 square foot of landscaped area. Overall, their landscaping plan was very substantial. While it generally complies with the requirements, staff would make two small recommendations: that the proposed commemoration sugar maples be substituted with American holly, and that the proposed emerald green arborvitae be substituted with eastern red cedar, both of which are native plantings. And all of the plantings that are proposed are on the permitted list within the Pine Barrens compatible growth area. There are no invasive species, so they were fine on that aspect. Just in terms of the sheer number of plantings, the application currently does propose a total of 1,800 plantings, including 5 trees, almost 500 shrubs, 7 evergreens, 191 ground cover plantings, 527 perennial plantings, and 590 ornamental plantings. I mean, they are proposing a significant amount of landscaping. The Pine Barrens, their requirements doesn't really speak to plant density per se, it just talks about clearing limits. So I would recommend, if the board's okay with it, rather than increasing the number of plantings, just spread those 1,800 plantings out over the 35% to meet those clearing restrictions. I think I'd be fine with that, if the board agrees.
That's fine.
Will there be irrigation? What are you gonna do for irrigation for the?
We just built one in Southampton and Flanders, and they just want it to look natural, so.
So no
We can or
irrigation?
we can't, it's up to you guys, but normally they just want it to look natural.
As of right now, there is no irrigation to
If there
plantings.
is, the only thing I would point out is that do a well, dig a well. In other words, don't put it on there's city water in that area. We would not wanna burden the water district with an additional, sprinkler system. That's all, that's my point.
Well, what are the board's feelings on providing irrigation, in
Well,
terms of permit?
they're probably gonna need to be irrigated at least for the
I would
first
think.
season,
Yeah.
until they're established, right? So I don't
Right.
know, you might be able to do it with hoses.
Right.
Drip irrigation.
You can also use the water truck, we've used that in other projects.
So in terms of installing an irrigation well, not really necessary. We can, as long as the plantings are taken care of and they take hold, the board's okay with that? And we can, we would include, if anything, include a condition in the approvals that, the plantings will be, insured or guaranteed for, a year or two.
We'll have Jason look at 18.
Yeah.
I'd like to see something going into eventual approval about doing the plantings early on. So they're not doing the building, say, all right, now we'll get around to landscaping. Which will take time for 1,800 plants to go in. I'd like to see it go in, so they don't forget about it.
The only issue that I could see with that is the need for construction access around the building in the vicinity. I think maybe, the board could weigh in on that. What should come first, the plantings or the building?
Well, is there much construction activity in that area?
Well, I mean, aside, they do need to put some, parking improvements in the vicinity of the building, just in terms of putting the foundation in. I'm just trying to think logistically, if they could do the plantings and then the building.
Is there a drawing here that shows where the plantings are gonna go?
It's in the.
It's on sheet C5 of the site plan.
We'll take a look at it, you can keep
All right.
talking.
And I just want to make comment to the board. We're working with the DEC right now because the permit was issued about 3 or 4 years ago for the 1,800 plants. we're working with their reviewers to see if we can somehow limit it closer to, 700 to 1,000 plants, because it's only 20,000 square feet of area, and we felt that the existing permit was a little overkill as far as 1,800 plants and 20,000 square feet. So we're kind of trying to find opportunities to substitute certain plants that might live a little longer, and instead of the shrubs and some of the evergreens we put in the plants right now. So we have a working application with the DEC to modify the plants. We're not gonna reduce it that much, but we wanna kinda reduce the plants to approximately 750 to 1,000 plants.
I mean, as long, I'll reserve formal comments for when we see a modification, but, I mean, again, the vegetation plan that they're proposes to revegetate the parcel, probably more than it was before the clearing took place, so, pending the receipt of a formal resubmission, I'll reserve comments, but that would be my general thought on that.
But again, DEC and Highmark
Right.
Correct.
staff are gonna have to approve that, so.
All right, so, just to wrap it up, as they said, they do have a DEC Wild Scenic Recreational Rivers permit. The permit will require modification, which the applicant is working on. It will require approval from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. Town engineer had some comments regarding the leaching pools for the drainage structures. The plan was referred to the Suffolk County Planning Commission. They considered it to be a matter for local determination. And we do have a resolution to schedule a public hearing for the first meeting in March. I believe some of the details that we've raised today can be addressed between now and then, and I don't think they affect the overall scope of the project that would prevent the board from scheduling a hearing.
So what are you gonna use the warehouse for?
Storage of, mostly plywood and solid wood for cabinet construction.
Wood.
Yeah, so that bubble that you see, that's what we have our wood currently in, but it's not a conditioned space, which is not good for the wood. It's getting damp and it's not really ideal.
Okay. So, and the fire marshal didn't comment on that?
We did not receive comments back from the fire marshal. I can make sure we get them, before the public hearing. It would likely address sprinklering the building or, combustible storage of that sort of nature. I can reach out to the fire marshal and we can get comments before that.
That could change things significantly.
Oh, to run the main line from the road?
If he makes you sprinkle a building.
I don't know, I mean, we just built one in Flanders and it's a steel building too, and they didn't require any sprinklers for storage.
Well, we'll be interested in their comments.
All right, I will get them before the public hearing.
We're currently running a 1-inch domestic service to the actual building itself, so it'd be just a matter of running another fire line to the main located on Edwards Avenue if we needed to.
Is that building gonna be heated?
Yeah.
Okay. Just
And-
one other question, that trash compactor, what goes in there?
That's the sawdust that we basically collect from all the machinery in the building, and we put it on a cement platform, cause once a month we have Winter Brothers come pick it up, dump it, recycle it, and then bring it back. So we kinda need access to kinda remove, I guess you could put a chain link fence around it,
I was just curious, I mean, it's just a big.
It's behind the building, right?
Yeah. Well,
yeah, it's kinda landlocked, I mean, you don't see
No,
it from the road.
That's not what I was getting at.
Oh.
Okay, but I'll just say the property, you go by there, it's well kept, it's a nice property, I mean,
Yeah, the golf course used to mow it for us until things went south.
even
so-
around the buildings and stuff, everything is always nicely kept and put away, and the property looks good.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We got it.
Who's next? Okay, next item 5 on the agenda, Riverhead Raceway site improvements.
Alright, so the planning department has received and reviewed an administrative site plan application seeking approval to perform minor site improvements at the site of the Riverhead Raceway. The application currently proposes to remove all the existing vegetation along the property frontage on Old Country Road, remove the chain link fence which encloses the front portion of the property, as well as place approximately 66 boulders along the front portion of the property and install 2 new access gates to the parking area. Proposed action is an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA. Planning staff recommends the planning board assume lead agency status without the need for coordinated review. The determination of significance is withheld pending resolution of the issues that I will raise momentarily, specifically dealing with the visual impacts from the loss of the existing vegetation. Subject parcel is located on the south side of Old Country Road, approximately 675 feet east of the intersection of Old Country Road and Cromer Avenue. It is a 24.6 acre parcel, which is the site of the Riverhead Raceway, presently improved with an oval racetrack, bleacher seating, several assorted accessory structures, including ticket offices, trailers, etc., as well as a large stone and asphalt parking area. As far as the fencing and the gates are concerned, the site plan proposes to remove an approximately 5-foot tall chain link fence, which is located around the parking area in the northern portion of the property along Old Country Road. Staff has no objection to the removal of this fence. However, the site plan should be amended to clearly delineate the limits of the fencing removal, as the chain link fence does extend approximately 800 feet south along the western property boundary. Landscaping, as I said, the site plan currently proposes to remove all of the existing vegetation along the frontage with Old Country Road, as well as vegetation along portions of the eastern and western property boundaries. While the existing vegetation is sparse, it does consist of some shrubbery and various trees, which can be seen in figures 2 through 4 of my staff report. Staff does not recommend removal of the existing vegetation. Rather, a landscaping plan should be provided to augment the existing plantings, if anything. Removal of the existing vegetation, although it is sparse, would completely eliminate any visual screening from the Old Country Road right-of-way. The planning board has consistently strived for attractive landscape designs to screen the visual impacts from commercial properties. So I think, approval of them just clearing all the vegetation would kind of be contrary to what the board has strived for along Old Country Road. In terms of the boulders, the site plan proposes the placement of approximately 66 boulders in the front area of the parking lot. To basically, it would mimic the original fence that was there. This is just done to prohibit vehicular access from Old Country Road. In figure 5, you can see the boulders that are already placed in the parking lot, presumably in anticipation of a site plan approval. Early in closing, I have no objection to the removal of the fence, no objection to the placement of the boulders, but the landscaping is just something I cannot recommend approval. Would like to see what the board feels about that.
I agree. I think that the fence is ugly. Putting the boulders might improve it, but why take down the vegetation that's there? There's no need for that. Take the fence down to where the boulders will be in place, and then leave the rest of it.
Yes, unfortunately, the applicant could not be here tonight, so I'm representing them with this application. The intent is to remove what they consider the scrubby vegetation, not necessarily existing vegetation that may be flourishing, as long as it's in the right spot where it's not going to interfere with the placement of the boulders. So if it does, then they would look to remove the existing vegetation. The applicant is not opposed to enhancing the vegetation with new plantings, green plantings.
It's not pretty, but it's there. That's the issue.
Right.
It may not be pretty, but it's there.
Is there a design to the bowl in front of the, within the grass area, or they make this the asphalt area behind it?
It does look like they would be planted behind the vegetation.
behind
Yeah,
on
so
the
I mean, as of right, just looking at the plan, it looks like the vegetation could stay. They could remove the fence and place the boulders. I just don't see any need to remove the vegetation.
So we've been requiring properties on this stretch of Route 58 to do these gentle berms and plant them. So why would we want to vary away from that if they're looking to redesign and re-landscape this area, and to be consistent with some of the other properties, to put a slight berm in there with some plantings and then the rocks behind it?
Will they be designed to
I'm sorry?
Design pattern to the rocks, or?
Yeah, it would be.
Pictures, like, they're just dumped there.
Oh, yeah, no, they're just, in place, they're not set in their final location yet.
Yeah, the plan does say, you know, maximum 6-foot clearance between the boulders, so they would be, you know, kind of staggered along the property line.
Why did he choose boulders to form a barrier?
The intent really, and is to clean up an old tired site and make it more aesthetically attractive. And boulders is a natural building material. If you go by there now, it looks like a prison, you know, surrounded by chain link barbed wire fence. And so we're trying to make it less institutional and more attractive aesthetically. But we have no objection to coming back to the planning department with a landscape plan that shows in more detail what we plan to do.
I think if you place them and leave everything there, I think it'll be fine. I mean, you know, I think it would look a whole lot better than that fence.
Oh, absolutely,
You know,
yeah, the
so,
fence has to go.
You know, and it, you know, he always does a first-rate job pretty much on whatever he does, so,
Yes.
you know, I don't think he would take, I don't think he would take that in a negative way, just leave the stuff, place them in between,
I will-
probably make it look a whole lot
Right.
nicer.
Yes,
you know?
I will discuss that with the applicant.
The idea of the fence, I guess, from years ago was to keep people out because of the barbed wire, et cetera.
Right.
Now you take the fence down, you put boulders up, you really are giving people access.
No,
Yeah,
no,
but the
because
gates are
there's an
further
inside
around.
fence that's right behind the bleachers there at the north end of the track.
Okay.
That will stay, so that provides the security.
I've sheltered, I've never been there.
I'm sorry?
I've never been to the raceway.
Oh.
Sheltered life.
You don't know what you're missing?
Yeah.
right.
So I would suggest that you work something up a little better detailed for us and
Absolutely.
come back and we'll, you know,
Right.
we're certainly in favor of making it look nicer, so however we get there.
That is the intent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, just ask a question, do they charge you parking now?
No. No, they don't. Free parking? Free parking.
You gonna go?
Don't get many ideas.
When my grandson's in town, I think I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, it's
I'll
awesome.
enjoy it.
Okay, next item, 836 East Main Street.
All right, so, this is just to really bring the board back up to speed. We have an application, to develop a vacant, 0.7 acre parcel with a mixed-use building consisting of 6,558 square feet of ground level retail and 6,780 square feet of second floor residential apartments, consisting of 8 dwelling units ranging in size from 532 square feet up to 980 square feet, along with parking, landscaping, lighting, drainage, sanitary improvements. Subject parcel is located at 836 East Main Street in Riverhead within the Hamlet Central zoning district. As the board may recall, we held a public hearing on this application in September of 2017 in order to receive public input on the application. At that time, there was a significant opposition from the residences of that neighborhood. The site plan originally proposed to take ingress and egress off of Prospect Place. As a result of that public hearing, the board directed the applicant to redesign the project. The application now proposes to take access off of East Main Street. They have coordinated with the DOT. The plans now include a bus turnout. The planning board did hear this application briefly. They issued a resolution, resolution number 19-67, dated July 17th, 2019, in which they classified the action as an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA. They claimed lead agency status without coordinator review, and they issued a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA. That allowed the applicant to receive relief from the Riverhead Zoning Board of Appeals. They received relief for, exceeding the permitted impervious coverage on the site. They did receive that relief from the zoning board. The applicant was heard at the October 23rd, 2019 ARB meeting, at which time the ARB recommended approval with the following conditions. The awnings to be a burgundy color, gooseneck lamps, part of the building design. Signs will be in a separate application, should all be the same style, color, and font, and a dumpster enclosure per planning department recommendations. The dumpster enclosure was already located on the site, complies with the town code. So I'm really just here bringing the board up to speed. We now have a resolution for this meeting for preliminary approval for the site plan. And if the board has any questions, would like any kind of refreshers, we're happy to provide that.
The condo project that was before us 2 weeks ago, does that butt up against this, or is that down further?
I don't believe so. I believe
Down,
that's
okay.
further down east on East Main Street.
Yeah, this is just,
Right, yeah.
a couple blocks over.
I didn't know how far away the other one
Yeah.
was.
That's Greg Polk's application.
Oh, I would mention at the Board of Zoning Appeals hearing, we had 2 people show up at that hearing, and they were just really here to make sure that it was what we said we were going to do. And in fact, they got up and spoke in favor of it, except for the one guy who was owner of a, no, they were all, the 2 of them that were adjacent property owners. And they got up and spoke in favor of it, that as long as it was laid out as the board suggested, they had no problems with it.
Okay.
I'll just make the same comment I made on your last project. You
I
know what it
figured.
is. This time, though, you have 8 units that you could possibly squeeze the 500
Yeah.
unit into a 600 unit. You got a little bit more space, I would think.
Right,
And
well.
that's my objection, I just don't like anything less than 600 square feet.
I realize that, but, you know, this was drawn up, there is nothing in the town code that forbids it, and, you know, I really suggest that if the board feels strongly about this, that you suggest to the town board that they amend the zoning code. I could certainly see it within the, zoning district for the, in town, but this one, or just the opposite. This one, I could certainly see it because you're more in a residential area. In town, I think it makes more sense to have smaller units, but this one, the board can certainly suggest to the town board that they might want to consider larger apartment sizes for this zoning. But as far as this application goes, I think it.
You're in
you know,
compliance.
We are in compliance, correct.
Any questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, next item, Riverhead Retail Partners.
Taking a different seat?
I am, changing it up.
Wow.
Changing perspectives. Another set on this end.
Okay, this is just to get the board, updated about the application for area real estate, otherwise known as Riverhead Retail Partners LLC, which is the 7-Eleven. There's a resolution on for later tonight. I just wanted to go through a couple of things that will have to be amended in the resolution, which Mr. Archer brought up to me. On the bottom of page 1, it talks about at the planning board meeting, the planning board also approved, discussed. So it should be discussed, so it's just deletion of approved. On page 3, item 2, that is also listed further down in the resolution about the covenants. If you recall, we had agreed that the covenants could be filed within 60 days of the building permit being issued, so it's kind of, doesn't need to be there. And on page 5, item 9, I didn't put in the correct applicant and location for the handicapped parking enforcement, so I'll have to change that. So I just wanted to mention that it will have to be amended I did provide the, resolution to Mr. Archer, and I don't think there was anything that was objected to. All of the conditions of the preliminary approval were met, except that, I need to get something from the manufacturer indicating that the gooseneck building mounted lights that are LEDs are 3,000 Kelvin or less. Also, there was an option listed in the description of the incandescent gooseneck fixtures for the sign that indicated, that option was only available for metal halide. So that would have to be deleted, because I don't think we want to do metal halide, correct? So that would be about it. I did note when I was reviewing the amended lighting plan, which it hadn't been listed before, that the light to illuminate the clock is above 16 feet. So they would need to get a ZBA variance for that, which I just put in a condition, number 26 on page 6, that a variance will be obtained for that prior to installation.
Why not light
So-
the clock internally, and then you don't need it? Light it internally.
I thought your
No.
code
Why
didn't
not?
allow,
I don't-
we weren't allowed to do that,
No
that's why
internal
we were
lighting.
doing
Okay.
this special thing, and that's.
You can't have like a low,
Internally lit, no.
Yeah, the code doesn't indicate that, that's allowable.
So before you put the light on, you'll get the variance.
We're gonna, yeah, I discussed it with Karen a little earlier this evening, frankly, assuming that and hoping that this resolution is adopted tonight, we'll go to the zoning board immediately.
Okay.
I don't think there's gonna be any real
Yeah,
issues.
we'll get you a denial,
Right.
and I don't think there should be any problem, because it's kind of a unique situation.
Yeah.
It's something the planning board wanted, so,
Karen, do you have all the amendments that we just spoke about? You have them all written down on your copy?
it's all on my copy, and I will make the changes.
And Mr. Archer, you agree with them?
They're fine. Yeah,
Okay.
Karen and I discussed it a little earlier today.
Okay.
We're good.
didn't we wanna discuss the color of brick again?
I think there's a
You must
three-time
have to
limit,
go
it's
in
kinda like
there.
double jeopardy, I think, you know, if I've been acquitted once.
So that's about it.
Okay. We'll vote on it tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome.
Good night, all.
Take care. Item 8, relocation of refuse area on the
Welcome.
property of the Knolls of Fox Hills.
Mr. Pasavia here. This is for relocation of a refuse area on the property of Knolls of Fox Hill. I don't know if you remember back when we approved the vistas of Baiting Hollow, there was talk about relocation of the dumpster enclosure, and, there was a whereas in the resolution that the applicant would grant the HOA an easement over the agreed-upon dumpster location. So, we were provided with a easement agreement for the refuse area. It's between the Knolls of Fox Hill as the grantor, the Knolls of Fox Hill Homeowners Association as a grantee, and Baiting Hollow Owner LLC, the developer and sponsor of the reserves. So it does allow for the relocation of the existing refuse area to the new refuse area, and a map was provided as Exhibit D. And it was determined, in conjunction with Dick Ehlers, that a planning board resolution was needed to ratify the change. The map shows the dumpster enclosure to be relocated a short distance away, but further from the condominium units to the north. It does show screening arborvitae or Leland cypress, 2 LED lights. According to email correspondence received in December, the concrete pad would be 6 inches thick, The fencing would be a 6-foot high chain link with black privacy slats, and, the fixtures proposed are LEDs, 3,000 Kelvin, with pole heights of possibly 8 or 10 feet. I put 4, it should be or, I'll change that. These lights are, proposed lights have pivot heads, so they could be moved up or down, but the correspondence indicates they'll be positioned facing parallel to the ground. It would be recommended that they use lights that can't pivot, but there's nothing in the code that says they can't pivot as long as they're kept parallel to the ground. So one of the things that was determined was needed was that the easement agreement for the refuse area be filed with the county clerk. And basically, the relocation of the refuse area would be approved by the board with the following conditions: the recording of the easement, a specification sheet for the proposed lighting fixture, that the lighting plan meets the requirements of Article XLIX, exterior lighting, and that it show the locations of the lighting, the mounting height of the proposed lighting, a full description of the proposed lighting, which correlates with the specification sheet from the manufacturer, the color, corrected temperature of 3,000 Kelvin or less, and then just illuminance level and 10-foot grids, so we can make sure the lighting doesn't encroach on the property to the north. So, that's about it, unless any of the folks here have any questions or comments. Oh, and then that electrical permit be obtained from the building department for the lighting.
When you look at the enclosure where it is today, where is it going? To the left side of it, to the?
I live right by the dumpster. I'm a resident as well as on the board. My name is Anthony DeJoseph. And I live directly opposite the dumpster area, which is just.
The existing.
Existing.
I agree with the movement.
Further
I
in
don't
to the
think-
south,
community.
south away from.
It's going
It's
south.
unsanitary,
Okay.
unsafe, unsecured. People from outside the area dumping their garbage there. We can't control it. We need, and it also affects the quality of life as well as our property values. A woman just had to sell a condo for $50,000 less than she bought it because she was directly opposite this. And all we're doing is moving the exact same configuration 20 feet. That's it. Nothing different. Maybe to make it aesthetically pleasing, more sanitary, and safety for the residents, as well as stopping other people from.
You're moving it to the other side of the driveway.
No, it's on the
It's
same
just-
size, further into
It's
the
on the
community.
same side.
Okay.
It just moved 20 feet to the
Further
left.
away from the buildings.
It's just a little further, plus we could put.
I thought it was bad placement. I did a site survey, I thought it was bad placement for the thing myself, so, I just thought that would be moved further.
Yeah, well.
But then I guess for convenience, how far away can you move it?
Yeah, we just wanna make it.
There's some restrictions with drainage and access to other roads, so this was kind of the most.
I would tell somebody to clean up that small enclosure that has no dumpster in it, people just are dumping garbage in there. The other enclosure which has no dumpster, I guess it was for the 6, or whatever they were, 5 or 6 units as you come in on your right.
On the right side, yeah,
Okay,
that's
if you
not,
go in
that's
there,
just.
it's full of garbage.
Is it? I don't
Plastic
know.
bags full of garbage.
Uh,
Yeah,
but-
just an observation.
It's just that we can't stop people from, I see trucks pulling in, dumping stuff. I'm not gonna get into an argument, and
Take,
it's not
take a
worth-
plate number.
Yeah,
Take a
well,
plate
if
number.
you're inside your condo.
Oh, yeah, but I mean.
Yeah, but if
say-
I'm inside my
yeah.
condo, it's not gonna work. So, one time I was out there, actually watched somebody pull up with a truck. They saw I was watching them, they left.
Yeah.
But I can't
Yeah,
be
of course
there
you-
24/7.
you got a
What
police
we wanna do
department,
with the
yeah.
new area is put up security cameras, so we can find out who's violating our rules.
That works, by the way, works very well, 'cause because they always seem to leave, an area there where you can get the plate number, so it does work.
And that's what happened recently, when I also got a plate number of a vehicle, reported them. They had to pay $275 because we had to pay $275 to have their garbage removed. They're placing electronic devices, propane tanks, mattresses, furniture, you name it, outside the dumpsters on the ground. And it's just horrible.
Keep that up, you'll have to get a permit from DEC. It's solid waste.
Okay,
So
so
what we
let's,
asking for, just to move it.
let's hope this takes care of it.
I just wanted to make the comment, I don't know if there's any way of having a sort of less involved process just to get the 2 lights approved. I know everything else was kind of been approved. We had the suggested light fixture. It seemed like a kind of low impact situation. We're making the new area, we're just, gonna run the new lighting off of where the old lighting was. It'll be nicer, it'll be lower to the ground. It will, of course, be facing down and dark sky compliant. We're just hopeful to sort of limit the additional process. It's taken a long time because there's multiple parties involved in getting the easements written. It's actually been like a year and a half trying to get this
Karen, did you
dumpster
say this
moved.
triggers an electrical permit?
I did talk to the, building inspector, and they said yes.
Just to modify
Not a
something?
building permit, an electrical permit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not a biggie.
Yeah, I would
For
think.
all the lighting plan, the 10-foot increments, there's gotta get an engineer involved now, it's just,
Yeah,
I
it's-
understand, it's just this, it's such a minor thing, we were just hoping we
I
could
get
get it done,
Basically the same thing, move 20 feet.
and make it look a lot nicer. It'll be
And it's
lot
in a
nicer.
private residential area, it's not encroaching on anybody else's, property or anything else.
I don't think it would be a big deal to get the permit though, I really don't. It has to be moved by a licensed electrician anyway, so I don't think that's a big deal.
We'll proceed in whatever fashion is the most
Did you speak to him?
expedient. I'm
Maybe
sorry?
Maybe stop down and speak to the electrical inspector.
Okay. Yeah.
They'll help you,
That's a
they'll
good
be
idea.
glad to help you.
That's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll vote on it tonight.
All right, thank you very much, I appreciate your consideration.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a public hearing for J. Ratto for a 2-lot minor subdivision. Do we have the posting? Chrissy, we do, okay.
If I may.
Just your name for the record, sir, please.
Absolutely. Bram Weber, Weber Law Group, from, address is 290 Broad Hollow Road in Melville for the applicant. So with me is Matt Crane, who's our surveyor, who can answer certainly all the technical questions much better than me regarding the plan. Again, John J. Ratto's here, John W. Ratto's here. They own this property. What I'm handing to you are before and after pictures of 730 Sound Avenue, which is the existing house that they have renovated quite nicely, fully permitted by the town. I think everyone overall is happy with the way the house looks. The application that we have here is a subdivision, fully conforming to take the 1-lot property of 4.71 acres into 2 lots of 2.35 acres and 2.36 acres each, both of which again are oversized for the zoning. And what I've handed you as well is a map that we've done just showing placement of a house on that second lot, which will be for John Ratto to build and to live in. We're seeking this minor subdivision approval. We need no variances.
Yeah, public water?
That was the question that we
Yes.
didn't answer, right? Was there a main down that road? They weren't sure.
Matt Crane, land surveyor for the applicant. There is a 12-inch water main on Sound Avenue.
Nothing down Forest, right?
No, there's individual service drop would
Okay.
go down to Forest.
Thank you. Okay, any questions from the board? Fairly straightforward. Anyone from the public have any questions or comments for this public hearing? Anyone from the public? Please come up to the podium and just state your name for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Robert Drost. I live at 521 Forest Hollow. And I see no reason why they can't do what you guys would allow them to do. We're just curious as to know where the access would be provided into the second lot from. You know, currently Forest Hollow is, you know, an access that gets kind of a back way into Lewin Farms, the Loco trucks. It's kind of, heavier trucks come on a really light road. So if, depending upon where that access is, you know, I've been a resident, you know, at that location since 1986, and I did my best with Danny Matachione to try and keep it groomed and cleaned up of any debris that would happen in and along it as a pitch drop off, just, you know, general maintenance. It was a dirt road when we first moved in, and, you know, and since then, it's been paved. We do have the two services that come in off of Sound Avenue for our water lines were put in at 2 different times. I just know that if anything's going to happen with the road, I have recollection of where the tubing was run from the 2 vaults, you know, up on Sound Avenue. That would be my only consideration, is just to make sure that if there's any digging that has to happen on what Forest Hollow currently is, we know where the water lines lay, because the furthest house up at the end was put in secondary and closer to the lot size. For the 517 Forest Hollow and 521 were put in, sharing the same trench on the opposite, on the west side coming up. And the only other question that I would have is the drainage on Forest Hollow. You know, where is that going to, to settle in at the bottom? And that's, where there's a portion of the south end of my property which could probably be used, if somebody were to see how the water does settle in and around that area, to catch, or to maybe 3 rings in a dome, or some way to catch water runoff, because there's a considerable amount of it that does happen there, and it is problematic at times. But that's the only issue that I would have is there what's going to happen with that? That's all.
Just looking at the job they've done, I think it's gonna be done right, and
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna.
Excellent. Those are
Be
the only
okay.
questions, but I'm.
Let's see the map, so we can trade the
Sure.
access.
No, I have not a objection in the world.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things we did, that's why we showed where the house was. We figured if anybody had any questions, it would be specifically where the access is, which is why we took the extra step of taking that plan, showing where the house is and where the proposed access is gonna be.
So I think part of the concern was replacement in kind if they have to bring the utilities in from Sound Avenue.
Correct. Understood.
Greg, do we get any comments from the highway department? Still waiting?
Yeah, it's a private road. State put a water main
Who
down.
paved the road?
It's private.
He said the road was paved.
I mean, I don't know if you wanna hold the hearing.
So,
but-
I'm just gonna ask,
Yeah.
since the public hearing is still going on, are there any other questions from the public? Any other questions?
We're good.
And Forest Avenue is a private road, is that right? Or is it
Uh,
a town road?
Town road.
Did the town pave the road?
Town maintained roads.
Okay, so
No, it's also, right off of.
there's drainage, whatever, you're gonna have to go to Geo.
Here.
That's what
This is Sun Avenue,
I
and this
think,
is the second.
I think before we do anything further
What
on
is
this,
this town road?
that we ought, before we do anything further on this, we ought to get this.
Okay, well, we'll just.
We
public
will
hearing.
be seeking a highway work permit for extending the water line and for the curb cut. And we won't be contributing any additional drainage to the roadway, because all the impervious surfaces will be stored on site in dry wells.
Okay. Any other questions?
make a motion that we close the public hearing of John J. Ratto for a two-lot minor subdivision, so moved.
The motion made and seconded to close the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we go to the resolutions, are there any comments from the public on any of the resolutions? Any general public comment on resolutions? Okay.
Move resolution number 2, for the Bakes Residence, Chapter 19, so moved.
Second?
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve resolution 2 for the Babkeys Residence, Chapter 219, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
I'll take resolution number 10, East End Country Kitchens.
Second the motion.
Schedule a public hearing on the site plan application, seeking approval.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve resolution 10, scheduling a public hearing for East End Country Kitchens, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Resolution is approved.
I'll move resolution 11, 836 East Main Street, granting preliminary approval for the site plan application. Was there a change on that? Was there a?
No.
Okay, so moved.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve resolution 11 for 836 East Main Street for preliminary approval for a site plan application, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye. Opposed.
Okay, so it's 4 to 1, Carissa. Resolution is approved.
I'll move resolution number 12, which takes the application of Calverton Tree Farm as a type 1 action and circulate request for lead agency.
Second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to approve resolution 12 for Calverton Tree Farm, classifying it as an action, as a type 1 action. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution's approved.
Res 13, resolution, Blue Water Development. Resolution for a final site plan approval for demolition of its existing single-family residence. And the location, where's the better location? What's the location?
Middle
James
Country.
Avenue.
Okay, that's it.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve resolution 13 for Blue Water Development, final site plan approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution's approved.
I'll move resolution 14, Riverhead Retail Partners, for final site plan approval, so moved.
As amended?
As amended.
Yes,
As amended.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve resolution 14 for Riverhead Retail Partners as amended. All in favor?
Sign of release.
All in favor again?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution's
Nope,
approved.
there's still another option.
I didn't hear you.
I didn't say anything because you didn't,
Oh, okay.
okay. I didn't vote yes and I didn't vote no.
You abstain?
Give me a minute, I will.
Okay.
I wanna thank the applicant, because from when he came in here to what it looks like now, it's a heck of a lot better. The planning staff, the planning board did a good job making this a lot better. But it is in the historic district downtown, and I don't think the 7-Eleven logo colors are appropriate. I think they could have been done with, pastels or earth tones and made it that much more better. So I'm going to abstain on it, but I do wanna thank you, wish you good luck, because it looks a heck of a lot better now than it did when it came in.
Okay, so we have, 4 yes and 1 abstention. So the motion, the resolution is approved.
I'll move resolution number 15, relocation of refuse area at Knowles Hill, the Knowles at Fox Hill.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve resolution 15 for relocation of the refuse area for Knowles Fox Hill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution's approved.
I'll move resolution 16, Tara Development Corporation, to repost the notice of an adjourned public hearing from November 7, 2019. So moved.
Second the motion?
Motion made and seconded to approve resolution 16 for reposting of Tara Development. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution's approved. Any,
Meeting minutes of January 16th.
We got a public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
any public comments? Any public comments?
I would just, Mr. Chairman, I have one amendment to a resolution. Resolution number 20-006 was passed by this board on January 16th, 2020. That resolution approved a two-lot minor subdivision of John P. Kioski and Sons, located on 630 Manor Lane in Jamesport. I was contacted by the attorney's applicant on Tuesday afternoon. They wanted to make a minor change to one of the whereases on page 2. The resolution in part read, the subdivision application is for the purposes of estate planning with one parcel to be retained under the John P. Kioski and Sons Incorporated name for continued farming in the corporation name, and the other parcel to be transferred to the applicant's son and daughter-in-law. The applicant had requested a minor change. We're gonna strike out the applicant's son and daughter-in-law, and instead it will read, the other parcel to be transferred to John P. Kioski Jr. and his wife Susan. Minor change,
Makes sense.
just bringing it to the board's attention. I spoke with counsel, we don't need to adopt the resolution. We're just gonna state the change on the record, and it can go forward as amended.
Okay, so noted, thank you.
Okay, one last thing, Chairman. Did we need to pass a resolution, for the scoping for Breezy Hill? that
It
we're gonna
didn't sound
post?
like we had to. He didn't recommend that we had to, it was just a matter of posting it. But I think the point was that any of our comments or additions, we need to get to them before, we post it publicly.
Yeah, if you have comments, please email them to us ahead of time, that'd be great. One last announcement, a week from tonight at the Recreation Center is gonna be the Pattern Book Community Forum. Forget the time, I think it's at 6:30, 6 o'clock. Take a look online for the exact time. There is an online survey, use SurveyMonkey, but if you go to the town website, you'll see the link to it. I encourage everybody on the board, anybody who's watching, to take that survey, that would help us out greatly.
Okay, thank you.
Where did you say the meeting is going to be? Where and when?
Oh, it's gonna be at the Recreation Center.
Shade Tree.
Shade Tree.
Yeah, we
And
did today.
I think it's at 6 o'clock. Don't double check the website on that, I apologize, I was trying to find the link. But it's approximately 6 o'clock that evening, so if anybody has any questions about it,
Yeah.
give me a call.
Was that paid for by grant money, or was that taxpayer money?
It's the, person they hired, isn't it?
It may have come out through S Power One.
I thought that was the update to the
That was-
comprehensive, I think the
there were
update to the
many-
comprehensive plan was paid for by the S-Power pilot.
That was just
community
one of the
benefit.
things. So there were many things that were paid for that. That was about. So,
Thank you.
sure.
Okay, Dick, you wanna do the minutes?
Yeah.
Minutes?
Approve the, motion to approve the, meeting minutes of the board, January 16th, 2020.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of January 16th, 2020. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are adopted. Okay, next meeting is February 20th at 3 PM. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, good night.
Have a nice weekend, everybody.